friends. This is Dolores Williams of DWSU Stand Up. I want to recognize my sponsor, Mr. Craig Candelore. Craig is in charge of the Men's Law Center here in San Diego. If you need great legal services, contact Craig Candelore of the Men's Law Center. And you can reach Craig at craig@menslegal.com. Thank you, Craig. Now, today, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will be glad, I will rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to DWSU Stand Up. This is Dolores Williams. I want to welcome a very special person to my audience today. But before I do that, I want to welcome each of you, my listeners, and those who hear this podcast each week. I have a very special guest that I'd like to introduce today. His name is Larry Dershem, and I'm sure a lot of you probably know him. Larry is an attorney for over 35 years. He's a very educated man, has a law degree, and let me tell you a little bit about Larry. Larry was originally from Dayton, Ohio, lives in San Diego now. He has a career of practice in law for over 35 years at Dershem and Associates, located in La Jolla, California. Now, Larry, I was so impressed about this, Larry. Larry has a nonprofit, and it's based in California and Virginia. It's called the National Law Center for Children and Families. And I'm going to ask him to share just a little bit more about that a little later. But Larry is a cultural warrior. He recently held a non-essential peaceful protest in San Diego. He was protesting the lockdown of our churches and people of faith by our governor. And I want him to tell us a little bit about that too. But Larry also has a radio show with his attorney colleague, Dr. Wendy Patrick. Now that comes on every Saturday, and Larry can tell us a little bit about that too. I want you to know all about Larry Dershem. I'm just excited to meet him. Now, each of you, please help me welcome my guest today, Mr. Larry Dershem. Good morning, Larry. How are you today?
Hey, great, Dolores. Thanks for having me on today.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate you coming. Now, I want to just go right into talking to you. I want to know what caused you to get into law?
I think that all my life I've been fighting for the little guy, and I can remember a thing when I was in the 7th grade. They used to call that junior high school when I was going to school, and they were making fun of this guy, and I stood up for him. Ended up getting in a fight. I think I shouldn't tell you that, and that was outside the school grounds. And and then again in high school, I was standing up for some of my friends. They weren't going after me personally, but I stood up for them, and I got in another fight. And fortunately, I got suspended from high school for that one. But I've always tried to defend the little guy all my life. And I think that's what brought it about. And just an interest in the law and fairness. I like to see fairness happen.
Amen. Now, would you like to briefly tell us about some of those organizations and how critical they are and what you do as a part of not your law practice necessarily, but things you do outside of practicing law, like representing children and those kind of things? Would you like to share that briefly?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, the National Law Center for Children and Families, that's a mouthful, right? So I usually just call it the National Law Center, or even NLC for short. It was started back in 1991 in Leesburg, Virginia, by the gentleman who was in charge of fighting pornography for the Department of Justice. And Rob Showers, he's still on our board today, and he still practices law in Virginia. And I have recently been appointed president, and my office is in La Jolla, California. So we have offices in Virginia and California. The original vision of it's a nonprofit, is to protect children and families, but mainly children from sexual exploitation. And back in the 90s when it was started, there was a big fight, and that fight goes on today to fight pornography, especially child pornography. And we're doing that. but we got really going strong back in the 90s when we were putting on seminars for policemen, law enforcement officers, probation officers, to teach them how to gather evidence and prosecute sexual exploitation of children type cases, child predators. More recently, we've been getting into human trafficking, how to fight that, how to teach people all the red flags to spot human trafficking. And as you know, it doesn't always happen on a corner where you see somebody grabbed and put into a car. It more often happens at a shopping mall. Of course, that's a pre-COVID, right? I'm not sure how many people are going to shopping malls right now, but these traffickers will pull up in Mercedes and high-end cars and be dressed really nicely, and they will lure girls to coming in to do some modeling and so forth, and all of a sudden they'll be trapped in human trafficking. And there's other aspects of that too, but that's what we're doing, and it's a very big calling, and so it's a pleasure to work with them.
Well, you know, that kind of fits right into what I wanted to talk about, the indoctrination of children. And that's why I wanted to kind of lead into that, because we know our children in the school today, and you know that better than anybody, are being indoctrinated into so many things, including sex trafficking. And, you know, and pornography is literally what they're teaching our children in school with the sex ed program. And we have Planned Parenthood in the schools. In some of the schools, I know in Los Angeles, I'm not sure about San Diego, but we literally have pornography being taught to our children, abortion, everything that's ungodly is being taught to our children in school. And it sounds like what the group that you're working with, you're well tied in and you're well informed, and you know about what's happening. And you're on the front end working to prevent some of these things from happening. And I'm concerned about the education. And I know not Planned Parenthood, but the PTA is not the group that it used to be as far as representing parents. And I don't know how to get the word out to parents of how devastating the education program is for our children. And even the online learning, I've had so many devastating things about what our children are being taught online. So
absolutely, absolutely. I would just say there's a lot of options now, and I think we have an interesting time period with the COVID-19 lockdowns where they're doing a lot of remote learning. I would just say a couple things. One, people should know about a person, her name is Rebecca Friedrichs, and we had her on our radio show actually twice. And she is a teacher. She was a teacher for 28 years, and she was upset that the unions were taking their money, particularly the state and national unions, and they were using it for all kinds of bad purposes to elect people that the teachers didn't agree with. And so she took a case all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was called Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association. And she fought that, but unfortunately, it looked like she was lined up to win. They had already argued the cases, but Justice Anton Scalia passed away. And so then it made it a 4-4 split. And so that case was not successful because of that. But recently, and this is super important, there's a case called Janus versus, I'll just spell it out, AFSCME or AFSCME. And that was a similar case. And now because of that Supreme Court case, teachers do not have to belong to the unions. The national and the state unions are often run by people who are not teachers, who have radical left-wing agenda items, and they often they work with the United Nations. And the thing that's happening so much that what we have in our schools now, our children are being dumbed down. In California, only half the students in public schools can read at grade level. In California, only 40% of the people, or the kids, I should say, can do the math at their grade level. And the unions are the problem. Well, anyhow, as a result of this Janus case, teachers do not have to join these national and state unions anymore. They will not get fired or laid off. Their contract will not be terminated, and they can keep that money locally. And that's a huge win. It's very important to know. And I would just say that you might want to check out her website. It's called forkidsincountry.org.
Actually, we interviewed her. we interviewed her on the podcast a few weeks ago, and she's a dynamite woman. I totally agree with you. And what she's doing is is so needed. And I know Standing Up to Goliath, that is the book that she
Exactly.
wrote.
That's her book.
Mm-hmm.
That's her
But yeah,
book.
yeah, that is great. And the anti-Americanism, that's a big concern. Teaching in the Black Lives Matter curriculum 1619 project. And I said all the time, and I'm going to say it because I hope parents will get it. Those are things that are teaching our children to hate this country, lying about the history of this country, and it just needs to stop.
Right. There's one other organization I want to make people aware of they may not have heard of, and it's to fight the comprehensive sexuality education. Now, probably a lot of parents don't even know about that. I know you do, Dolores, but a lot of that's being pushed by UNESCO and the United Nations Population Fund.
Mhm.
And what they're trying to do is basically teach this radical sex education that includes hardcore pornography. And there's a bunch of databases. One, they're supplied to all the schools across the country. One is by, this is called Gaylord, and they supply databases to all the school libraries across the country. And with a few clicks, if you go to the school to do a homework assignment, you can be into hardcore pornography. And they don't seem to care. But I want you to know about this organization. It's called Protect Child Health Coalition. Protect Child Health Coalition. And if you go to their website, protectchildhealth.org, you can get totally involved in fighting this. And this is a national organization, and they're fighting this all across the country now. Parents are waking up, and they need to, because their kids' lives are in jeopardy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That is just so important. Now, I want to jump into the election, and I wanted to talk to you because with your background, I'm sure you realize how wicked and how evil some things have happened in the recent elections. And I was just blown away with the amount of corruption. And unfortunately, not everybody agrees with that. But I mean, I was looking at the elections on election night. I literally had to leave the event that I was at because I could see this. I said, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. There's something very wrong with what's going on. I felt like I had to leave. I could
Yes.
see it. It just wasn't right what I was seeing, and I could feel it. And I said, no, I need to get out of this atmosphere because it was just totally wrong. And so I want you to give your input about the election. And I know Sidney Powell filed uh, this weekend, I believe she filed two lawsuits. And
Right.
I don't know if you know, by you being into law, that's why another reason I want to talk to you, how successful I know you probably don't know all the details about them, but what are the chances of those lawsuits getting attention in law,
Yeah, I think there's going into several prongs. And I know they had that big 90-minute press conference a few days ago. And we had Sidney Powell there, Rudy Giuliani, and others. And now Sidney Powell's kind of working on her own. And basically, she filed her lawsuits in Michigan and Georgia. Now, what's amazing about that she is going from the angle of this cyber, basically, corruption, this cyber fraud that's happening. And basically, by using this voting software that they have, Dominion voting systems, is just, it was designed in, or at least modified in Venezuela, because Hugo Chavez did not want to lose. He lost a referendum, and he said he didn't want to lose any more elections. So they tweaked that software and developed it, made its way up through Cuba, and now it's in, I think, at least 30 states. And by the way, I think your podcast may go out nationally, but in San Diego County, where I operate from, San Diego County Registrar of Voters admitted to me they use Dominion Systems voting software. And this is so interesting. Okay, so there is a gentleman in Colorado he owns a data company, and he is able to get into a conversation because he can work all the channels and so forth. And he infiltrated into Antifa. Well, when he was in Antifa, there was a gentleman there, his name was Eric Coomer, but they just called him Eric. And they were talking about, well, what if this is an Antifa conversation on a Zoom call? And he said, well, what if Trump wins? And this guy named Eric said, there's no way that's going to happen. He used much stronger language than that. Well, it turns out that Eric Coomer is the systems officer of strategy and security for Dominion Voting Systems. He's the main guy. And he is all over the place. He's the one, you can match him up with Georgia, with the Georgia governor, Brian Kemp, who's a Republican, by the way, and Secretary of State and chair of the Georgia State Election Board, Brad Raffensperger, who are actually named in Sidney Powell's lawsuit. And there is pictures of him with this Eric Coomer, this guy who's the head of security for Dominion Software. Now, what are the chances all the battleground states will all of a sudden close down at once, and in many cases kick people out? You know that they're tweaking the system, right? And there is so much fraud. I think it's just going to be a tsunami. And I just hope it comes out. Now, Giuliani and the president's lawyer, that young lady, is working the other end of it, just like other types of fraud where they're not verifying signatures, where these ballots are arriving like at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, 100% for Biden, none for Trump, things like that. So we're working a couple different angles, but that Sidney Powell one, I'm really hopeful. She's the one that defended General Flynn, by the way. Oh yeah,
General Kelly.
Very powerful lawyer.
Yes, yes.
Trust her.
Yeah, that's great. Now I hear that I've been listening to Stacey Abrams. That lady has a lot of power in Georgia. Yes. I heard that she has over 800,000 absentee ballots. She's announcing that even now, before the elections even happen in Georgia. I'm very concerned about the same thing happening in Georgia. And if they're using Dominion to vote, which after all this stuff that's happened with the national election, I hope that someone would stop them from using Dominion. It should not be used in this election. And I'm just concerned about fraud happening all over again in those 2 Senate seats in Georgia.
Everybody is concerned, Dolores. I think that election is going to be on January 4th, a runoff election. Is it January 5th?
Yeah.
Okay. Early January.
Yeah.
And I think all eyes need to be on Georgia.
Yes.
And I don't think they should use any automated system. This is such an important election because if those 2 Democrats win, they're going to flip the Senate. That means it's going to be like California, where we basically have a one-party state, Newsom the governor, and basically the Republicans in the legislature in California can stay home and, I don't know, watch TV or do whatever they want to do. They're not needed. There's a super majority there. Do we want a one-party system in the United States? And here's one, a little tidbit here. John Ossoff, I hope I pronounce it right. Okay, he originally tried to cover up a huge contribution to his campaign from the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and that's been proven. He's getting money directly from China, at least part of it. And then how about Reverend Warnock?
Oh.
Okay, he's a reverend. Okay, see, he says healthcare includes abortion is a total human right. And so he's totally pro-abortion, pro-Planned Parenthood without restrictions. I'm not going to be going to his church soon. So he's the other Democrat that's running. So those 2 people need to be, they need to lose that election. And we need to keep the existing incumbent Republicans in office.
Oh yeah, we need to, because if Dominion, I think any electronic voting system is up for grabs and up for a lot of shenanigans to take place. And I hope that people would vote in person, but I don't know that the governor, who can call that a session to change those rules, I don't know that that's in the plan. But people need to vote in person in Georgia. Yes. They need to go to the polls and vote, or get an absentee ballot that can be verified if they can't go. But it's just massive fraud. You just don't have 800 and some thousand already off the bat. That's just unheard of.
He didn't even campaign. Biden didn't campaign.
No, he didn't need to. It was already promised to him that he would win.
Yeah, when he went to campaigning, he had about 10 or 20 cars there. He was up with his mask. He drove.
I know.
He can't half the time. I mean, nothing to say about people. We all get older, but he is basically, because I do estate planning too, I know when people are starting to lose their capabilities in their mental facilities. And I think he's on that pathway. All the gaffes that he makes, almost every sentence he says. And this is a huge thing. And basically, it's freedom to continue freedom, or basically slide into socialism/communism if we lose Georgia. And
Yeah.
I'm just hoping for President Trump too for 4 more years with him.
Yes. Well, you know what? That we have to trust God. We
Yes.
have to trust God. And another thing, speaking about what could happen with Democrat total control, here's another thing that people need to realize. They've already promised us that they will create 2 more states, and that will give them four more senators, more power for one party controlling this country. And pack the Supreme Court.
There you go.
They will put it in place where they will have permanent power. And just like the power of all these states we have to tell the truth, Larry, all the states that are run by Democrats are the ones that are clamping down on the rights of American citizens. They're telling you how many people you can have in your house. You can't defend yourself if somebody comes knocking on your door, threatening you. You can't even defend yourself. And the gun show as Second Amendment, Larry, you know that they canceled the big gun show in Virginia, and they have other ones already planned that they have canceled those. Now you're talking about Second Amendment rights, and these gun shows are well run. You just don't walk in off the street and go, oh, I'm going to buy a bunch of guns. No, the criminals who get guns, they get them illegally. So if we shut down the Second Amendment, guess what? The criminals are going to be the only ones with guns. An American citizen will not be able to defend themselves.
That's right. Yeah, we are basically in a revolution, and I think this is a Marxist attempt to take over the United States of America. And that whole thing about packing the court, the Supreme Court, basically you just put in enough of your left-wing judges to get everything you want, and they will have no control. They will own the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary branch, and game over. Yes. And so we can't allow that to happen, in my opinion. It's just, here's another interesting thing. I did some research on this, Dolores. Do you know, when I was in, just out of high school, I did a little tour of the Navy Reserve, and you have to get security clearances. Not many people know this. You do not need a security clearance to run for office. That's why we have people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, who hate our country.
Oh,
hating me. And we just need to put the controls. And going back to the elections, you'll never believe this. We just did some work on the air conditioning system. We had this gentleman from Mexico. He's a genius. He's so smart. I said, you need your own radio show. And he said, in Mexico, the PRC party was winning 60 years in a row until they reformed their voting system. Right now, there's a federal voting ID. Everybody in Mexico has to have, if they vote, it has their picture, it has their thumbprint. Yeah. When they vote, they have to put their finger or thumb into indelible ink that you can't possibly get off for at least 10 hours, I understand, no matter with alcohol or whatever, so you don't go back and vote twice. We don't even have that. They're more advanced than we are.
Yeah. You know what? I totally agree with you. When I heard that a few years ago about the safety guards that Mexico has in place to protect their voting system, I said, wait a minute, what's wrong with things in the United States that many states, they don't want to see your ID, but you can't go to the grocery store, you can't go to the bank. In other places, you can't transact business without showing your ID. And voting is one of the most important things that we have, our privileges that we have. And I mean, it's just, and you're talking about people hating the country. There are so many people in politics who hate this country. They're in politics for the wrong reason, to bring down this country. And, we had a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner with our family yesterday. And I had the chance to talk to my family and tell them, look, America is a special place. Don't ever take this country for granted. If you think you're always going to have this country and you're going to just go about your business as usual, that could not happen. That could be taken from you if the wrong people are running this country. And Mr. Biden has already shown, he's laid out a roadmap. He's telling the American people, if he's confirmed as president, what he will do. He's already said he will not have the America First agenda. America will he will have a world agenda. He will legalize every illegal person in this country. He will more or less open the border of this country so anybody can just come here. And he's already telling you, the American people, us, what he's going to do if he gets in that White House. He's telling us what he's going to do. He already laying out the groundwork. I don't know how many people are paying attention to that. It's scary to me to see what he's already said. Oh, I've been elected and this is what I'm going to do.
That's right.
It's not good.
I would call that back in my day treason, what he's proposing. Basically,
yes.
eliminate the borders, let anybody come in here, especially in this COVID-19 situation.
Yes.
Let anybody walk across there? Are they going to bring other biological type agents with them? That's a prescription for destroying the United States of America.
Yeah. It's a one world government.
Yes, absolutely.
One world government, and that appears to be what their plan is. And we know that we've heard that for so long about one world government. Now we see somebody talking about they're going to literally get rid of the United States, and that's what it would do, destroy the United States.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're talking about even President Bush Sr., I think Bush 41 was talking about a new world order. Well, when a president speaks, you don't just say words like that. What does that mean, a new world order? We know that George Soros sees this as a problem with his billions of dollars. He puts it in every left-wing cause possible. And now this thing, they call it the Great Reset. And there's a lot of billionaires, unfortunately, that see us as a problem to their global management style. And to me, Dolores, I know this is not a Bible show, and I'm not even close to being that knowledgeable in the book of Revelation, but it seems like we are moving into the last days at a rapid speed.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. We just got through talking about Revelation in our Bible study. And I tell you, the things that we see and even in our Sunday school class, we look back to Moses and his encounter with God on the mountaintop and how wicked the people were when he came back down. And so we've been talking about that and how Moses, how he pleaded with God, just like we're pleading with God right now for this country, just as we have to remind God of his word. And so we're pleading with the Lord right now for America. And
we are 100%. And I think that people might want to consider doing this is, study Mahatma Gandhi in India with his civil disobedience, study Martin Luther King Jr. And by the way, as a lawyer, he is one of the most eloquent speakers you could ever find. If you want to become a great orator, watch some of the clips of Martin Luther King Jr. He's an amazing speaker, and he had his peaceful protest as well. And we go back to this lockdown situation. It's not rationally related to anything.
no.
Limiting your Thanksgiving dinner crowd, but yet you sit in a plane for 5 hours to fly across country with 100 and some people you've never even seen before, sitting there in 5 hours, breathing the same air. That's okay. Going to Best Buy, which I have, and people are just milling about. We're bumping shoulders. We have our mask on, but we're bumping shoulders, but you can't go to church. Currently, we can't even meet inside in our churches. This is a test. We are under a test, and people, in my opinion, need to rise up now in a peaceful way and just basically defy some of these orders. Now I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, but it breaks my heart when I see these restaurants that are going under. They've worked for generations, some of them, to start these businesses, and they are just going under.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, open up your business and call it a protest. This is a protest against the lockdowns. Open your business, open your churches, and call it a protest.
I agree with you, Larry. I truly agree with you. Now, I see that in Los Angeles, they've been banned from even meeting outside in their restaurants. It's like they are totally trying to destroy. I think it seems like it's a plan to destroy all small businesses. Because if you get rid of the small businesses, guess what? Who are the people going to depend on? They will have to be dependent on the government. It seems as though that's where all of this is headed, to get rid of small businesses. The government, who has no money, will then take control.
100%. 100%. And I was talking with my daughter. She sometimes argues with me and so forth. And I said, do you remember back to December 2019, we started to get the pictures out of China, Wuhan, China, about the coronavirus. And I remember pictures, I can see some of them where they had this gentleman who was face down on the street and his groceries spilled out on the sidewalk. Pictures of all these people laying on the like the town square. And we know that's not how the COVID works. So could that have been a psychological operation to get us prepared for this COVID introduction and get us prepared for this lockdown to instigate this great reset that they're talking about? It was so, and I know COVID doesn't work that way, and we're getting all these pictures out of China, and then all of a sudden we have it here in the United States and it's everywhere. So, there's a lot going on, I think, that needs to be revealed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that the China virus was a mistake. I think it was a deliberate thing that was set upon the United States. And I always say, I think it was designed to get rid of our president.
Yes.
And I just believe that. I may be wrong, but I'm entitled to my opinion. And that's what I believe. Because just no coincidence that they protected their country, but they let that disease go all over the world, everywhere except in China.
Exactly.
And now, I know you mentioned these two representatives in Georgia, how radical they are. I just want you to say that again, because I want people to just know how radical these people are. And I would consider them a part of the deep state.
Oh, absolutely. Now, again, Senator David Perdue is a Republican, and he's the incumbent senator from Georgia. He's running for re-election, as is Kelly Loeffler. She's a Republican incumbent senator from Georgia. And both of those two incumbent Republicans are in a runoff election against two Democrats. Now, the first one, his name is John, he spells it Jon, Ossoff. And he claimed, he just made an admission, kind of like whoops, that he failed to disclose the fact that he had a huge donation from the Chinese Communist Party to his effort to get elected. And then we go over to Reverend Warnock, who again, he's a Democrat, and he is totally good and even supports abortion, the full-term abortion. He's all on board with everything Planned Parenthood wants to do, and he views it as a human right, the right to terminate another life. That's kind of an interesting contrast there, I think. So yeah, they're very dangerous, and if this nightmare were to unfold again, and those two Democrats get elected in Georgia, the Senate would basically be under the control of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. And if Biden is able to stay in office, basically, then they're going to pack the Supreme Court, and our country, in my opinion, is pretty well done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it will be done. And I think that's another reason that Kamala Harris was selected as its VP running mate, because she is a wicked woman. She has done evil things. She's not a nice lady. And I think a lot of Black people who were locked up in prison here in California know, and we're under her tyranny. And I know David Daleiden, who exposed the Planned Parenthood selling of aborted babies.
Yes.
They raided Camilla. She ordered the raiding of that young man's home and took all of his equipment illegally. And he's still in court to this day, battling against a giant Planned Parenthood and what they have done to aborted babies, killing the babies.
I know. What does it say about our country, Dolores, when basically the person that exposes basically a planned killing and selling of body parts, he exposes that, and he's the one that's persecuted? Are we living in the Bible times when wrong is right and right is deemed wrong?
Yeah, I would say so. And when a minister running for the Senate of the United States can be for abortion and killing of babies and stand up in a pulpit in the United States and say, I'm a minister of the gospel, there's something wrong with that. That's not representing God. It's not even representing human dignity. Anyway, I just gets me upset just knowing that it's deceptive. Deceiving the American people is deceptive.
Exactly. And I have a good friend who's really smart, been a friend for many years, and he said that maybe all this is happening in God's timing, so all this corruption can be exposed. And I'm just praying, like I said, for Sidney Powell, for Rudy Giuliani,
Yes.
and his team, and for a gentleman, his name is it Lynn Wood? I hope I had
Yeah,
that right.
Linwood, that's correct.
He's another amazing Christian attorney who's very, very successful,
Oh,
very
yeah.
powerful, and he's working his angle at it too. So I pray that basically all these people that are engaged in fraud are exposed, and this whole house of cards of evil comes tumbling down.
Yes. And the sooner the better.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have long, do we? We have to.
Right. We don't have long. It needs to come down soon. And we know that it's evil, and we just can't, as Christians, we cannot stand up for evil. When we see evil, we have to call it out. God calls us, as you know, Larry, salt and light.
Yes, yes.
Calls us to be salt and light and to tell the truth.
We are. And yeah, just briefly, I wanted to go to that what non-essential peaceful protests again. So we've been deemed by the state of California, the churches have been non-essential. And without naming any names, I contacted 3 pastors to see if they would join me and speak at my event. Now, I have to say it was on a Sunday, when they're really busy on a Sunday, and was very short notice. I had time to put that together, but no pastors were able to come by except for Pastor Bishop Hodges. That bless his heart.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. He's the gentleman with the help of my hero attorney, Chuck Lamandry, who basically is responsible for saving the Mount Soledad cross. And if you have listeners that are not in the San Diego area or Southern California, just know that Mount Soledad cross, a war memorial cross, ACLU was trying to tear that down for over 28 years. That is the longest running religious civil liberties case in the whole history of the United States of America. And he was able to save that cross. Not that we depend on a cement cross for our salvation, but it's the idea that people can remove all artifacts of our faith. And what are they going to go after the churches next and remove those and remove the crosses off our churches? Who knows?
But you know, Larry, but the church has been very compliant to the government.
Yes.
The church has just kind of laid down and been compliant to the government. It's like they're controlling the church, and the church is not standing up.
Exactly. And this goes why I need to go back to the book of Revelation, and I wish I was better and more of an expert in it, but it's like we're the lukewarm church. Is it the church of Laodicea? We're not cold, we're just getting by. And there are hero pastors. One of my very favorite is Pastor Jack Hibbs of the Chino Hills Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. He is standing up. He's got thousands of people in his congregation, and they're open up to full inside services. And I think he's still doing that, even despite this purple zone that we've been placed in by the governor. And there are others, Pastor John MacArthur, up in Los Angeles area. He's standing up. There, you could probably name a few others. Pastor Hodges here in the San Diego County area, and others. So there are the brave pastors that are almost taking the Bonhoeffer approach. We're standing up for the truth, and if that puts us in jail, if that brings problems, we're willing to deal with that. We are with God. We will never change our mind or our heart away from God to be politically correct or to be safe. And it just breaks my heart, Dolores, that again, when I was down there at that non-essential peaceful protest, they did an article by the Union Tribune, which is our largest newspaper in San Diego County. We have 3.3 million people down here. And they had me on the cover, and it said, ministry leaders put this on. I said, heaven help us. I'm a ministry leader. You know, we're the mega church leaders. Why aren't they there in the picture? I shouldn't be there. But that's what we're at in this country. So I think God is separating out the
wheat from the tare. He is. And you know, my prayer is that people will hear these messages, that they will listen to these messages, and that they will heed the messages, you know, Larry, because you're doing it on your weekend radio show. And Lord knows I'm not doing these podcasts because Dolores said, oh yeah, go out and do a podcast. No. And it was God who led Kim to talk to me about that. So I just thank her for helping me to pushing me, to share and to get the word out, about the things about culture. Because
I'm
if
with
the
you.
body, if the body of Christ doesn't stand up and try to tell the truth and make a difference, nobody else is going to stand up and tell us the truth and try to impact our relatives and our friends and our loved ones, who some of them, get upset with us because they don't want to, they don't agree with what we're saying. But we have no reason to lie. But time is, time is of the essence for us to wake up.
Well, we have to take back our children and protect our
Yeah,
children, going back to the National Law Center, going back to the Salt and Light Ministries, going back to that wonderful ministry called Public School Exit.
Yes.
If your listeners
Through the Salt and Light.
Really short promo, very short for tomorrow's program. We're going to have Sam Sorbo, the movie actress, TV actress, on our show, and she is totally into homeschooling, and she's going to teach us and show us how to do it. She'll be on our program tomorrow.
Oh, you know what, Larry? Why don't you go ahead and we're going to finish with our question, but why don't you go ahead and share what it is you want to share with the audience now? Go ahead and tell us how they can contact you, and share all that information right now. And yeah, just go ahead and share what you want to share.
Yeah, right. So if you want to listen to our radio show, it's called Today with Dr. Wendy. Today with Dr. Wendy. And you just go to the theanswersandiego.com. That's the easiest way. Type it into your favorite search engine, theanswersandiego.com. You go up to the guide, you pull down the guide and look for Saturdays, and then you scroll down to 6 p.m. and you will see not only our show connection, but all of our podcasts. We started this back in April 25th. We're doing, I think, our 32nd show, Dolores, tomorrow. And I have a story like yours. I never in my wildest thought that I would be in the media at all. I don't think I have the voice for it or anything for it. But I think that God maybe is opening this opportunity so we can get his word out. And I give all credit and all glory to God and zero to myself. And luckily he brought Wendy Patrick in, and she is a Christian conservative attorney who's like on the media all the time. She's more of a TV person than a radio person, and she's been on all the locals and all the national radio shows. I mean, TV shows like CNN and Fox and so forth and so forth. So we're doing what we can, and that's how you find us. And you can listen to our podcast, by the way, at that site, theanswersandiego.com. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Okay, now they can listen live to your show tomorrow, right?
You can listen live on KCBQ AM 1170 if you're in San Diego County area, or FM 96.1, which is better for the North County if you live up there in Oceanside or Carlsbad and so forth. Or, and this is the best of all, you can click on the, go to theanswersandiego.com, click on the listen live button. It's a big red button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and that streams live all across the country, all across the world, really. And
that's at 6 o'clock?
It's at 6 p.m. every Saturday, 6 p.m. every Saturday.
Oh, okay. That's great. Now, do you want to share how people can contact you? I know you have a law firm and you do a lot of good work.
Right. Yeah, we would love to do estate planning for you. That's probably my main area of interest. I'm also a county hearing officer, but that's kind of irrelevant for this discussion. But I do estate planning. In fact, right after this call, I'm going to be rushing up to Rancho Bernardo to meet with a client regarding that. And we do trusts, all the estate things you'd want, wills, durable powers of attorney, healthcare directives, and so forth, and even probates if you need that, so forth. But so you just go to dershemlaw.com. And Dershem is DERSHEM law, LAW, no space, dershemlaw.com. And then we can get you going on an estate plan, or we do all types of law, but that's probably my principal area.
Larry, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing and being salt and light.
Thank you, Dolores. You're an amazing person. And I just feel so privileged to be on this show with you.
Amen. I just give God all praise. And to you, my audience, those of you who come and listen each week, please share this podcast. You can contact me at dwsviewstandup@gmail.com. I expect you to come. I expect you to share. I expect you who are out there listening to also stand up It's not just me and Larry who's standing up. It's about every person who's concerned about this country and concerned about your church, your children, your family. If you have any concern, now's the time to stand up. And because if we don't stand up, who's going to do it? And no one will. But anyway, I want to thank my sponsor again of the podcast. I want to thank Kim and her son Liam for the work that they do, helping me to get this out. And I just want to end with, if we do not stand up for what we believe, who will?